Hey, let's go live, everybody. Here it is, Pond Boss. Let's do this. Hello, everybody. Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss. Let's go live tonight and have a little bit of fun. Hang out together. Answer some pond questions. Create some pond questions. Let's just see how all that works. So, hey, join me. Let's have a little conversation. So, it's been about a month since I've been online. I've put up all my podcasts that are ready. We've shot, I think, 6 more podcasts, and I've got to get some photos and things to Chico so he can plug them in, then we'll do some more. Now, what I don't know is last time I went live, I got cut off, and I don't know why. I mean, I don't know if the cyber boogeyman hit me, but I keep getting all these little alerts that things are too slow. But anyway, we're going to have a little bit of fun tonight and just have some pond talk. Hello, Troy Todd. You guys, you see the deal. Troy's kind of beat everybody to the punch. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Click like on this video and share it to your timeline, and you're eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat, and I might even throw a Pond Boss 1-year subscription in on that deal. So let's do that. Hello, Justin Schenk from out there on the left coast. Glad to see you, man. I hadn't seen you in a while. Never seen you, but now I see you, although I don't. Frank James, hello, buddy. How's everything over there in Louisiana near Houghton, Shreveport area? There's John Moore checking in for Kentucky. Steve Thorburn, Central Kansas. Good, good, good. We got folks checking in, so that's a good thing. With this format, let's see, looks like we have 10 viewers, 6 comments, 1 reaction, 1 share. So be sure and share this. So until I start hearing some topics from you guys and questions, I'm going to start off. John Funk sent me a message the other day. Let me see what he said here. He messaged me on Facebook. He said, love the podcast. One thought for one will be to talk about the drought many of us are starting to see or are in and ways to contend with it and what effects it has on our ponds and our fish. Should we take out more fish if the levels drop so far? Many questions and hopefully many answers. So I'm going to tackle that topic until you guys start hitting me with some questions. Richard Williams, South LA, Louisiana, Mike Cottrell, Pilot Pennant County. Hey, I got an alert, Mike, from the Brazos River Authority. They're letting water out of Possum Kingdom because there's been a pretty good amount of rainfall in that watershed up around the Caprock. I've got a customer over near Post, Texas, with a 30-acre lake that's got to take about a 4-inch rain to fill it, and it filled it in 5 days, which, who saw that coming? So, good rains. Drew Bachman from over South Carolina checking in. Good to see you, Drew. So, let's talk about drought for a few minutes. The thing is, I've learned a number of topics, facts about drought. If you're not in a drought, you will be. So be prepared for that. And we'll talk about that in a minute. The other piece to that puzzle is every drought ends with a flood. So if you're not in a drought, you will be. And every drought ends with a flood. A 2 or 3 inch rain is not going to end a drought. Now, it makes the grass grow better. It makes the ponds a little bit happy. But the only way that the drought ever is with a flood. So let's talk about, hello, Deborah Corlew. Glad you won your bet. Hey, I got 2 things going on here. I've got my Pond Boss grandchild mug with, there's not much room to put any more names on this thing than that, but there's all my grandkids. There's 13 of the little dolls. That's got water and ice in it. This, on the other hand, has 2 fingers of Buffalo Trace. I've heard it's pretty good, and I'm going to tell you. Pretty smooth. Pretty smooth. I don't know where Danny Mack is. He ought to be on here, but I was going to ask him a question when he shows back up. So let's, Mike Cottrell definitely, yeah, thankful for the rain. Heck yeah, I totally get that, man. So here's what happens with the drought. So you guys can understand the way that this game works is during a drought. Now, one thing Mike Otto always says, he says, every pond leaks. Just some ponds leak less. Some ponds leak more. But I'm going to tell you this. During the peak of the summer If the temperature hits 98 degrees, I don't care where you are. You can be in the Rocky Mountains, you can be on the left coast, the right coast, you can be anywhere. If the temperature is 98 degrees and the humidity is under 30%, you're going to lose about half an inch of water to evaporation every day. So as that water evaporates, just know this: when a pond evaporates, the only thing that leaves is water. So while that water is in your pond, it's absorbing, dissolving different gases and metals and minerals. So let's just use this for an example. Say you're in real jippy land where there's a lot of calcium sulfate or calcium carbonate. So you got a whole lot of minerals. So as the limestone dissolves into the pond, it reaches its equilibrium. So then as the water evaporates, the concentration of all those metals and minerals goes up. Now remember, most small ponds and lakes, the top 3 feet, 4 feet, something like that, is typically the same volume as the rest of the pond. So if you lose 3 to 4 feet to evaporation, that means that the concentration of the metals, minerals, gases, whatever you've got, is going to double. Now, the gases have a way of dissipating into the atmosphere, but the metals and minerals, the only way they can make their exodus is to precipitate. Like when you look at the pictures of Lake Mead over there in Nevada on the Colorado River, you see that red rock outline, and then you see all the white. That's calcium carbonate that is deposited on those rocks when the water was higher. So what happens is the water levels drop due to evaporation during a drought. All those metals and minerals increase in volume. So let's say that you had 100 parts per million calcium carbonate or total alkalinity, and then half your water evaporates. It's going to double it to 200 parts per million. So now, not only have you lost half the volume of water, you've doubled the volume of all those dissolved minerals and metals and some gases to some extent. So what happens is that happens gradually, and the fish and the plants adjust to that. But if you get those big rains, that flood that takes you out of the drought, and you double the volume of water in a short period of time and cut the volume of all those dissolved metals, minerals, etc., by half, then what that does is that can stun the fish. That can affect the pH of the water. It can affect the metabolism of the fish, the pathology of the fish. It can affect the osmoregulation of those fish. So be aware of that. Now, what can you do about it? I don't know. One thing that now, as the drought goes on slowly but surely, and your pond shrinks and the volume shrinks, then what happens is the best get better. So the big fish eat the small fish. So the dynamics of the population adjusts based on the size of the pond and the volume of water that they've got. So when that drought's going on, there's things happening. Now, that's also a pretty good time to be culling a few fish if you need to. Water kind of lubricates those vocal cords. So during the drought, the best thing you can do is monitor your water chemistry so you can see what's going on as those numbers go up or down, and then cull some fish. Now, of course, your fishery is going to cull itself some, but that's a real good time to be culling some of the small fish. Now, when the drought breaks, here's what happens. The water fills up. You've got twice the volume of water, in theory, maybe in reality, and you flooded some new habitat. So what do the fish do? Come on, raise your hand and tell me. What do the fish do after the drought when the pond fills back up during a flood? Type your answer in. I'll come back to it in a minute and address it. So I see some things going on here, so I'm going to scroll back and take a look here, see what's going on. Okay, Frank James. I'm not drinking Bud Light unless I'm shopping at Target, and I don't do either one of those, dude. I can't believe that those dumbass marketers decide to throw politics at a product. If the product doesn't stand on its own merit, what the heck? Okay, there's my political rant. But next time I go to Target, I'll drink a Bud Light. Ain't happening. Okay, let's see here. I'm getting a little bit behind. Okay, Richard Williams put 50 small 2-inch bass in a half-acre pond today. How long till they be ready to catch? Well, how big a bait you going to use? Richard, I don't remember where you are, but I'm gonna make a prediction. If you have properly built your food chain, if you got happy water, great habitat, you've built your food chain, you stocked your bass, you stocked 2-inch bass today in a half-acre pond, I would expect those 50 bass by the end of October, say middle of November, to range in size from the smallest would be about 6-7 inches long. The biggest ones probably be 13. So I would bet you out of that 50 bass, 25 are boys. They'll be the smaller ones typically. The other half, 25 will be girls, and of those 25 girls, they're going to be about 4 of those that are 12, 13, 14 inches long by the end of October. If you built the food chain, you got good habitat and happy water. So here we go. Okay, Deborah. Hello, Larry Hardesty. Deborah, good to be here with ya. I'm ya. We started using muck remover on a 10-acre lake. How much depth can we expect to get realistically by using a remover? Well, that's directly proportional to how much organic matter you've got in the muck. So you tell me how much muck you got, and I'm going to tell you how much depth you can obtain. So what happens typically with a lake, when it rains, it begins to fill up with muck. Now, it could be silt, it could be organic matter, it could be decaying aquatic plants, all that. So the muck remover, especially in conjunction with an aeration system, can process that organic matter pretty quick. So I don't have a good way to answer that question other than unless you can tell me how much organic matter you've got. I've seen ponds gain as much as 10 or 12 inches in depth across the bottom where all the muck's at. So it really is totally contingent upon how much of that muck is dirt. Dirt only breaks down to what it can, which is dirt, or organic matter, which can break down and compost and actually, dissipate. Some of the nutrients get released back into the water column. It breaks down into its fundamental ingredients, which is mostly nutrients. Sonny Mitchell, enjoy your show and magazine. Got a question. I scrolled past it. Let me look at it. Let me see here. Hang on a minute. Coming at you. Okay. Enjoy your show and magazine. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Pond Boss YouTube, I've got, I think, 12 or 13 podcasts up, a bunch of small vignettes, and then we archive all these on the Pond Boss. It's at the Pond Boss, I think, YouTube channel. Got a question. I've been fertilizing my favorite 5-acre pond for many years, and I've noticed that after I get a good bloom on my pond, the fish bite goes to nothing. Really have to work for them. What gives? All right, let's dissect that. When the plankton bloom kicks in, 2 things happen. That's pretty smooth. That affect the bite. One of those is you've created the base of the food chain, which is feeding zooplankton, which feeds tiny bugs, which feeds bigger bugs, which feeds larger bugs and small fish, which feeds medium-sized fish, which feeds your fish. So that's the long way around the circle of that food chain to tell you that they're just not hungry, not as hungry. The second thing is when you have a bloom coming out of winter, when the water has been clear, you've changed the way the fish can see. So bass, bluegill, fish like that are typically they need to see what they're going to eat. Now they don't have to. They can sense movement with their lateral lines, which allows them to sense like a school of shad over there, and then go investigate it. But as they investigate it, they're not going to hit it till they can see it. So they're not quite as hungry when there's a big bloom going on, and they can't see as well. So change the way you fish to using something that makes noise, that covers a lot of space, and maybe slow down a little bit. Now you're talking to a guy that everybody on this forum here, everybody watching this show can outfish me, but you can't beat me raising those fish you catch. Christopher Aguilar is in the house. Yes, sir. Yeah, Christopher, I'm going to come back at you in a minute about the haircut comment. This is pretty funny. Okay, let's see here. Oh, I see Wes Neal checking in. All right, you know what, Wes? I'm going to cover your deal next. Hey, Bob, do you have an opinion regarding a hybrid catfish versus channel cat in ponds? Had that question posted today, and I have never really thought that much about it. You know, I don't really have an opinion. The opinion that I have about hybrid catfish, a hybrid catfish, if you can find them in the marketplace, first of all, they're a cross between a blue cat and a channel cat, typically. Well, what happens there is blue cat, they're exclusively predator fish, where a channel catfish is a little more opportunistic. Like Dr. Neal. Dr. Neal, by the way, if you don't know who Jason Wesley Neal is, that's Dr. Wes Neal, fisheries biologist, professor from Mississippi State University, contributes to Pond Boss every issue. This guy knows more about fish than any of us, most of us all put together. So I'm flattered that he would even answer this question. So hybrid catfish, they will still eat fish food. Blue cat will eat fish food, but blue cat are typically top-end predators, where channel catfish are more like teenagers. They're going to go to the refrigerator, open the door, look for meat. If they can't find meat, they'll eat vegetables. Now, neither one of these fish are scavengers. They're both predators by choice, but channel catfish are a little bit more opportunistic. So the hybrid channel catfish will get larger than a channel catfish. But I'd rather have channel catfish because they're easier to get, they're put and take, although I'm not opposed to hybrid channel cat crossed with blue cat. So that's the best answer I can give you about that right now. Okay, let's see. We got Sonny Mitchell's question. Aguilar's eating boudin. We don't have to worry about him. He's got his mouth full. He can't talk. Mike Cottrell, after drought, the pond dang near dried up, but luckily we had the first flood and the water quality seems so much better. Why is that? The water quality is better typically because it's new water on top of new habitat. So another thing that happens when you have a drought and the pond draws down, all the soil that was underwater and covered in muck and organic matter has a chance for that stuff to oxidize. So when the atmosphere can contact what used to be the bottom of the pond, it helps cleanse it through some natural composting, breaking down things, because it's in constant contact with oxygen. Where when it's underwater, a lot of that organic matter goes anaerobic, which typically means it can't compose nearly as quickly. The interface between the water and the pond bottom, oxygen, even if it's only an inch, the oxygen goes to zero really, really fast because that organic matter is consuming the oxygen faster than it can be added to the water at that depth. Now, when you get to the thermocline, below the thermocline, there is no oxygen below the thermocline, so everything goes anaerobic, things slow way down. But when your pond goes down during a drought and your soils get some aeration, that helps cleanse those soils. Then what happens is terrestrial plants begin to grow up. You'll see cinnabeans, cockleburs, grasses, things like that. That soil cracks. And then when it gets a little bit of rain on it, plants grow on it. So a lot of the nutrients that have been sequestered in the mud, that was mud, are now being utilized in terrestrial plants. So one thing I coach people on is when you have a drought and you start seeing those plants grow up in the bottom of the pond and there's grasses and cockleburs and stuff like that, cut it. Let it grow up to a point, cut it, rake it out if you can. Now, raking it out, that might be asking a little bit too much, but I'd still consider getting it out. Let's see, Troy Todd Spawn. Okay, I must have missed something. Let me look here. Troy Todd, I'm going back up, looking. Okay, Troy, I missed the punchline, dude. Spawn. Are you asking me to do that? I like the way you're thinking. Hello, Gary Elborn, Frank James. Flood after drought, increased fertility in spawn areas, big spawns. Absolutely right. That's right. When you have the flood after the drought, now the increased fertility comes depending on where the water comes from. Now the fertility of the soils can be mitigated some because that a lot of those nutrients can be consumed by terrestrial plants given the right amount of time. If they've got time to do that, then that's what will happen. Ryan Clark, the bass start to feed more. There you go. Frank James, I have a 1/8 acre forage pond. Yeah, I know that pond. Maximum depth 9 feet. Could drain directly into the main body of water, 7 acres. If a drought, would I retain more water in the forage pond or drain it into the main pond? I keep that forage pond full because the forage pond, when it's growing, when it's got plenty of water and you can grow more bait fish, because what happens during a drought is your forage fish typically get decimated. And then when the pond fills back up, and depending on the duration of the drought, if it's a 3-year drought, your bluegills may be annihilated to the point that they can't recover. If it's a shorter drought, 8 months, 9 months, a year, then they can recover from that. But when you've got, a 7-acre lake and you've got an 1/8 acre hatchery pond, I keep that hatchery pond full and keep growing as many bluegill as you can. That's what I would do. Aguilar, time for a haircut. Well, let me tell you about this haircut. Look at this. Dude, I got some hair growing right here. So let me tell you what happened. About 2 months ago, my wife looked at me and she said, "Have you ever let your hair grow out?" And I said, "Nope. I've always had a woman telling me where it needed to be cut." From my mama to all my wives, every one of them people told me what my hair needed to look like. She said, "Well, you've got a good head of hair. Why don't you let it grow out and let's just see what it looks like?" Well, I've never let my hair grow out, so we're going to let my hair grow out and see what it looks like. So who knows? I don't know. But Debbie kind of coached me up on that, and she wants to take me to a hairdresser. She's looking at me kind of funny through the window. Well, okay. So I'm going to let it grow out until I can't stand it, and then we'll cut it and see how that goes. Might help me spawn better. Okay, let's see here. Oops, scrolling down. I'm missing something here. Bear with me here. Holy cow, I'm getting behind, y'all. R.E. Thompson. R.E. Thompson, he's one of the most amazing people I've never met. I want to meet R.E. one of these days. He's like 130 years old. He rides a motorcycle. He helps people with substance abuse problems. He teaches Sunday school. He takes ancient chainsaws apart, puts them back together. He manages ponds and lakes, and he catches big fish. Dude, R.E., you're like, 85 or something? You're killing me, Smalls. My knee hurts, but I can't say anything about it because I would be embarrassed because of everything that you do. Mark Dyer, and R.E. in his own right really does a good job managing some of his buddies' ponds around. He lives in Mississippi. He needs to know West Neal. Okay, Mark Dyer, I've been putting my caught catfish and crappie in a 55-gallon barrel live well off my dock to clean all at once, but an otter is cleaning the barrel out before I do. He's emptied the barrel of 25 to 35 pounds of fish 3 to 4 times. Do you think he's killing them all and eating just some and the carcasses sink to the bottom, or some likely escaping him as he gets out of the barrel? I don't like having him there, but as many catfish need cold, he's somewhat helping out. My worry is when the barrel is empty, he's probably eating my bluegill I'm feeding. Well, otters, they don't have gray poupon. They don't discern. They use the cheap mustard. They're going to eat everything they can, or they're going to kill whatever they can. So what they'll typically do is they'll catch a pretty big fish, play with it, chew the guts out, and then leave the carcass for you to find. And so I don't know how your barrel's worked out, but can you put a lid on it? Maybe cut a drain where the water's over. Maybe you're pumping water in and out, but I know this. I tell you, here's how you solve that problem. Kill the otter. Yes, I said that live right here. Drew, in March, we had 2 river otters visit our half-acre pond, spring-fed pond, for a week before moving on. How fast can river otters kill the fish? If you had 2 river otters, they can kill 1 to 2 fish every night. So let's see, you got a week, that's 7 days. They'll kill two of them will kill 1 to 2 to 3 fish per night. They play with them, maybe they'll eat them, maybe they won't. So let's see, half-acre pond, and they're catching your biggest fish typically. So I saw a bluegill in Purina's pond the other day that a mink had caught, chewed the face off of it. I'm going to put that in Pond Boss magazine, the next issue, by the way. So how fast can river otters kill the fish? Really, really fast. So in a half-acre pond can probably support 25 to 30 pounds of largemouth bass. And if that's 20 fish, they can eat them all in a week. Kill the otters. Did I tell you my wife's having me grow my hair out? It's driving me nuts. I've never had hair this long. I don't know what to do about it. She tells me I look like Kurt Russell. I don't know what the hell she's thinking. All right, Ken Weber. Ken Weber. Any kin to Dave Weber? Dave's up near Kansas City. I have a new pond, 3/4 acres, South Louisiana, and I stocked with copper-nosed bluegill and fatheads March of 2023. Both are spawning and thriving. My question is pond fertilization. How do I know if I need to fertilize and any guidelines? Okay, you're probably past your window to fertilize in South Louisiana. Here's your guidelines, though. And I'm going to tell this to every one of you watching this show. If you will buy Secchi disc, Secchi, Secchi disc, or look it up online and make one. Check the visibility depth. So what you can do is a Secchi disc is basically a 12-inch circle that is got an X painted in it. 2 quadrants are black, 2 are left white. You lower that down into the water until the Secchi disc disappears. Then you raise it up just to the point you can see it. Then you measure the depth that visibility is. That's going to tell you whether you need to fertilize or not. If the visibility right now is 18 to 30 inches this time of year, you're in good shape. The visibility is more than that, and your water temperature is 80 degrees or higher, a little edgy as to whether or not to fertilize it. The problem with fertilizing now is the odds go up that you can produce a harmful algae bloom, which is typically blue-green algae or planktonic algae, things that we don't like. So I would rather see you bump up a feeding program, feed your copper-nosed bluegill and your fatheads, rather than fertilize. But there's a couple of the guidelines. All right, let's see. Tyler Shockham Markley. Hey, Bob, just had Bill and Jay Hartley out this morning. I love those guys. Bill Hartley, I knew Bill when he was in high school, and now the dude's got more gray hair on his head than I do. So that is so cool. Those guys are in the trenches every day. I got to meet their daddy back like in 1980 or 81 while they were just little bitties. I think they were still pooping yellow. You know, they're younger than me. So I love to hear that, and I hope that you told them hi for the Pond Boss. Jamie Stamper, hop on here now, Delmer. Hey, Delmer Cooper. Delmer, are you watching? Talking to you, buddy. Come on, you got questions. Jaime says for you to come on here and let's play. Check us out, dude. Let's talk. Let me know what your questions are. John Moore, since I began feeding Aquamax a year and a half ago, I've noticed significant growth in my bluegill. Yes. However, I'm not getting the same results with the red ear. Correct. What are some things I can do to boost the red ear growth? Hello, Mark Corser. We got to talk earlier today. Mark is over near Lexington, Kentucky, and he's getting ready to renovate a couple of ponds. So his learning curve is steep, but his enthusiasm is high. So let's go back to John here. Let's say, hey, John, red ear sunfish they're shell crackers. So they're not going to come to the fish food. I don't think you can get them to come to the fish food. They're just not interested in that. If you want to boost red ear growth, then you need some aquatic plants. Aquatic plants host snails, which are the primary host of some of the common parasites that you see in fish, and red ear sunfish flourish on crustaceans, small crawfish, They eat lots of snails. They eat tiny mussels, all that. But they're probably not going to eat that fish food. Bluegill are going to just tear it out. Okay, well, I'm getting behind. Let's see here. Holy cow. Y'all bear with me. I'm going to catch up really quick, I promise. Oh, this is funny. Okay, Troy Todd, what happens after? You know what? Let's do a commercial real quick. 7 o'clock. You know what? Hey, Pond Boss, remember, $35 a year, cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. You get all kinds of nuggets. Every time this thing hits your mailbox, I can't tell you how many people will text me, call me, email, and say, hey, I sat on the toilet and I read it cover to cover. You know, I got it in the mailbox today, and I hid in the closet and I read the whole thing cover to cover. Well, nobody ever says that. But I do get a lot of comments from people that like it. So please subscribe to Pond Boss if you haven't done that yet. Now, I know Mark did, because I saw that come across our emails a couple days ago, and he bought one for a friend. There's Peyton Igo from Shreveport, Louisiana area. So, what was the question? Oh, what happens after a flood? After a flood, the pond fills back up. The water chemistry shifts. It goes from being stable to unstable till it begins to absorb what it can again, dilutes what's there, then it stabilizes. Oftentimes the pond will be muddy. Maybe it'll clear up. Maybe it won't. But with new fresh water, it can be very cleansing. It can be real cleansing. Okay, Tyler's going to watch the stream later. 10-year anniversary pictures. Well, congratulations. I'm glad she stuck with you this long, dude. Okay, Frank James, long hair may protect your identity when you sneak into Target. Yeah, I'm going to be sneaking into Target. If I ever go into Target, there'll be a target right here on my chest. Somebody's going to throw something at me if I show up in Target. Ain't happening. Robert Hudson, thanks to Aquamax, my 5-year-old daughter caught 1 pound, 2 ounce bluegill. I love to read stuff like that. Send me a picture. Hello, Tom Alderman. Tom Davis from Ohio checking in. Thompson, last year I had a hard time getting a bloom in my pond. Kept putting fertilizer in, but the storms would kill it. Now that doing anything, have a great bloom. What's going on? You hit the lottery. You hit everything. Everything. The timing was right. The amount of fertilizer is right. The pond temperature was right. So it all ginned. It all clicked. Hello, Sherry Dyer. Robert Hudson, I had an honor a few months back. He died of lead poisoning. Well, everybody's got Second Amendment rights. Aguilar kind of got that mountain man going on. Let the meatball roll grow it out. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work out, but it's going to be fun doing it. Larry Hardis, he finally caught some fish coming to the MVP. Hopefully they will grow and make babies. Well, you're going to enhance their chances of having babies eating that MVP. Because when fish get good nutrition like what you're doing there, Larry, the better nutrition they get, the better they can develop eggs. The better they can develop eggs, the better they can spawn. So that's all a good thing. Now we're kind of getting to the time where if I've reached my maximum storage capacity, I might get cut off. If I get cut off, my apologies. I don't know what to do about it. So I'm going to keep talking until it goes away or we hit 7:30, whichever comes next. Mark Dyer, how long do bluegill stay on the nest and how long does it take for the fry to hatch? A bluegill is going to build a nest and stay on it. Typically, when the temperature window opens, they come hit the nest, and when the females are ripe, the males may be there for 3 or 4 days because they can sense the pheromones that the females are giving off that their eggs are becoming ripe. So then they'll nudge the females over there. The females will lay their eggs, and then the males will sit on those eggs. And depending on the temperature, it may take anywhere from 4 to 10 days for those eggs to hatch. And then once they hatch, the fry absorb their yolk sacs. And that's where they get their nutrition. Then the male runs them off, and if there's another female ready, he'll go again. But then once he goes through that first cycle, typically the bluegill will come off the beds until the next cycle of the full moon. Then they'll go at it again. So when the temperature's right and there's a full moon cycle, it's a 7 to 10 day spawning cycle. And what's really interesting, the way nature works is pretty cool, is the bluegill will go through their cycle, then the window opens for the temperature for the radiator to spawn. And the radiator will spawn. Now, sometimes there's overlap. I electrofished a lake south of Kansas City last week. We shocked up a fair number of hybrid crosses between bluegill and red ear sunfish. So some of those male red ears were coming onto the beds when there were still a few ripe females, or vice versa. There were some female red ear that were ready to go, and some males were still lingering behind, and they crossed. But that's not real common. It's all temperature driven. Scott Hamilton, Half Acre Pond in West Texas. All the monsoon rains. Let's see here. Uh-oh. Something happened. Lost you. There it is. All the monsoon rains had run off in my pond. Muddy water. How do I clear the water? The pond is regularly well filled. Okay, so what you do there, Scott, is give it a few days. I say a few days. Give it 10 days to 2 weeks. See if it settles out by itself. Now, in the meantime, I'd go ahead and if you got a 1 gallon glass pickle jar, or even a quart jar, mason jar, fill it up with water, set it on a shelf, and see if the mud settles out by itself. If it doesn't settle out within about 10 days or so, then I'd be looking at gypsum, and I'm not sure what part of West Texas you are. If your water's gyppy, it's going to clear up by itself. So gypsum's one choice, alum's another choice, but that works contingent on the minerals that are dissolved in your water currently. So if you can dissolve, if your soils dissolve more lime in it, more gypsum in it, odds are going to be that it's going to clear out by itself. But if it doesn't, there's some things you can do there. And that usually includes buying some gypsum. And in West Texas, there's several gypsum mines out in West Texas. There's one over east of Quanah. I don't know what part of West Texas you are. Okay, Tom Alderman, we have access to fish a pond that's around 2 to 3 acres. It's very shallow and the water level is down low. Anyway, due to lack of rain, we catch small fish for the most part, but in removing as many as possible. Anything else we can do? Start feeding those fish. If you can feed the fish, I'd feed the fish. But keep culling small fish. I'll tell you something you can do. Weigh and measure some fish and plot those onto the graph. If you don't have the spreadsheet, send me an email. I've got a spreadsheet where you can plug in links and weights. Jim Allen, who I forgot to text today to let him know the show was on, but Jim Allen has created a stellar spreadsheet where you can plug in links and weights and compare your bass to standard bass. Mark Williams, nice beard to me. I trimmed it yesterday. Yep, it's white. I'm old. Debbie likes it. Cherie got your Pond Boss today. Sweet. Our friend Jay ordered it. I love Jay. Tell him thanks. It makes a great gift for neighbors, says Mark Williams. Yep. John Moore, which aquatic plants do you recommend? Well, it kind of depends on where you are. So my number one most favorite aquatic plant is American pondweed. I love that plant. I love it because it's got leaves. Periphyton can grow on it. It's not so dense that medium-sized fish can't navigate it. I love that plant. I love eelgrass. I love a number of the native plants as long as they don't become invasive. I love bushy pondweed, but good gosh, that stuff can create a dense mat. So I'm kind of particular about that. Okay, Matt Marsden, American Fish Tree. You got a customer watching on here. There, Matt. Let's see me back up. Yep. Mark bought some of those from you. Chicken with, I'm reading stuff here. Y'all bear with me while I'm reading through here. Mark Corser bought some of your product there. Matt Marsden. Mark Williams is talking to R.E. Thompson. There we go. Yep. Okay, Matt Garner. Holy cow. People are talking to each other, and I'm trying to figure this out. Signing up for the, hey, thanks, Matt Garmer. I'm glad to see you doing that, buddy. We appreciate it. Scott Hamilton, just north of Abilene in West Texas. That water should clear up over there. That water should clear up. Okay, Robert Hudson sent a picture through Messenger. I'll see if I can get it. Holy cow, I think I've caught up. Let me scroll back through here and make sure I didn't miss anything. We talked about aquatic plants. Okay. Yep. Okay, I think I'm caught up on everybody's questions. So, I'm looking from you. Here's how you guys can help me. I need some podcast topics that are important to you. Send me either, you know what, if you post them here, I might see them, I might not. But if you will send me some ideas for podcasts that you would like, then I'm getting ready to shoot some more podcasts. So if there's something that you'd like to know more about, some topics, tell me about that and I'll do on it. Okay, let's see. Deborah, where do we get bulk aquatic plants? I do not know the answer to that. I tell you what, there's a void in the marketplace for that. There's a couple of nurseries. I'm embarrassed that I can't remember the names of them. But I know if you will Google like eelgrass and American pondweed purchase, stuff like that, there's a couple of nurseries that pop up. And there's a niche right there that's not being filled. Hello, Jason Dodd. What's up with you, dog? Cherie, are snapping turtles a problem for our pond? Not really. So you know what? Let's talk about turtles for a minute. My standard line, Kessler's in Wisconsin. Steve Thorber said that's good. Okay, so my standard line is if a turtle catches a fish, the fish deserved it. That's my standard line. But over the years, I've watched turtles, like mud turtles, sliders, turtles like that. Where they become a problem is if they get a little bit too dense, they'll interfere with reproduction. They'll disrupt spawning beds, especially bluegills. When bluegills are spawning in colonies, a turtle can sweep through there and push the bluegills off the nest and eat eggs. I don't like that. Plus, they'll eat fish food. And when you're paying as much as you are now for a dadgum bag of Aquamax or whatever you're buying, fish food prices because of ingredients have gone out the roof. So I think taking the few turtles out, if you got, again, a 1 acre pond, if you've got more than 15 or 20 turtles, you can see that's too many. Now, snapping turtles, on the other hand, I don't think they're a big deal. Actually, I think they're kind of cool. And they're typically solitary, like an alligator snapping turtle or a common snapping turtle. Those things are solitary. They come in, they wallow down into the mud, and they actively fish. But they're not going to decimate a fish population. And I have captured snapping turtles that are as old as 80 or 90 years and weigh 60 to 80 pounds. And I think those fish deserve to live. I mean, those turtles deserve to live. That's just my opinion. So now, soft-shell snapping turtles, they're fairly common, but you don't see more than 2 or 3 of those in a 3 or 4 acre pond. So I don't see them as a problem. I see the multitudes of mud turtles, sliders. Oh gosh, there's some with red all over the bottom of them. Those can get so numerous that they interfere with reproduction of bluegills and they'll eat your fish food. John, minimum size for bluegill red ear brood ponds. I'm going to tell you 1/10 of an acre. 1/10 of an acre is about as small as they need to be. You can grow a whole lot of bluegills in a brood pond that's 1/10 of an acre. I know that because I did it. Let's see here. Mark Williams, turtles are the devil. Make great targets, though, and they explode nicely. He said that. I've never seen one explode. I've just seen them take a thump and sink and then float up later. Okay, let me see here. Steve Thorburn, again, said Kessler's in Wisconsin. Take a look at that. One question, if you're going to buy from a nursery in Wisconsin, make sure those plants will adapt to your geographic region. You know, in South California, maybe they will, maybe they won't. South Texas, they probably won't. So check it out. Aguilar, pushed the boudin to the side of his mouth and said, Jeremiah Johnson, Robert Redford, the mountain man movie I was looking for. That's pretty funny, man. Robert Hudson, podcast topic. How to grow big largemouth and big bluegills in the same pond. That's a real good topic because they typically go hand in hand, believe it or not. You can grow some really big bass, and typically with big bass, you've got big bluegill, or the big bass would eat them. Mark Dyer, topic, using top-end predator fish to help manage coal lakes with the most common species population issues, like when to use tiger muskie, wiper, bass to solve overpopulations. Okay. Of certain species or manage a lake for a desired result, like trophy panfish lake. I like that topic. I like that. I'll drop that one down and see what we can do. Del St. Julian, I shop testers, but also he's got me on the edge of my seat there. Wisconsin is perfect. We're in Northwest Illinois. There you go. There you go. Podcast topic, alternative bait fish options. Look at there. Del St. Julian got the KesterNursery.com. We got a plug going on here. There you go. You haven't used a 308 rifle? No, I haven't. Actually, you're right, Mark. I have not. Dr. Williams, I have not used a deer rifle on turtles. David White, topic, mossback versus natural cover. You know what? I like that idea. That's a good one. I haven't done that one yet. We can talk about when to use artificial structure compared to natural cover. Now, natural cover, to me, that is when we're talking about things like aquatic plants, brush piles that decay. You know, some of the natural cover, I don't think anything is better than a rock pile. I have seen, well, there's one thing better than a rock pile. There's one thing that attracts more fish than a pile of rocks. That's a beaver lodge. I can't tell you how many times I've stuck an electrofishing boat in the lake and I see a beaver lodge, I head right toward it because I know as soon as those electrodes get within just a few feet of that beaver lodge, it looks like popcorn. Little fish boiling up, climbing out of that beaver lodge. Pretty freaking amazing. Okay, Jonathan Miller, we used to have bluegill. Is it possible they're all gone? We only fish plastic lures for largemouth, so we don't catch any. It is possible they're gone. Not likely, but it's possible. So what I would do there is go buy some night crawlers, a bobber, and a small bluegill circle hook so they don't swallow it. See if you can catch some. That's kind of fun. Because if you're going to have bass, you really need bluegills. So just because you haven't caught any doesn't mean that they're gone. But the question is, we used to have bluegill. Is it possible they're all gone? Possible, not likely. Depending, unless your pond's a bowl with no structure in it at all, then it could be. Mark Dyer, artificial habitat configurations and spacing for adding structure to a pond. So we can tackle that in the same podcast. I mean, what I can do with the podcast is I've got some images, some photos, I can show some of that configuration. I'll tell you something else you guys ought to do. Go to the at the Pond Boss YouTube page. I've got 2 videos on there about habitat, and they're really, really good. One of them, we went. Chico and I did 5 different stops on a couple of road trips, and then compiled our thoughts about habitat. That's a really good video. Chico did a great job on that. Then there's another one where I shot a live video as I was driving around the basin of a lake that was being renovated and showing what things were done with teepees, tic-tac-toe boards, brush piles, levees. This hair is driving me nuts. So go look at those videos, and you may see some things there that you can use. Jay Spires. Hey Bob, thoughts on putting tilapia, trout, in a 3/4 bass bluegill pond for fishing and forage for the bass as seasons change? I love that idea. I think that's a great idea. The thing I love about both tilapia and trout is you can select the size of fish that you stock based on the size of fish that you want to feed. Now the tilapia, if they're legal, in Southwest Virginia, I don't know the laws there. You got to check your laws. But if you can be, like for example, if you want to feed your bass that are 2 pounds and bigger, well, you can stock 8 to 10 inch trout for example. If you want to only feed bass that are 4 pounds and bigger, stock 10 to 12 inch trout. Or tilapia. The tilapia, if you want to, feed bass that are 2 to 4 pounds, you can stock 4 to 7 inch tilapia. And the tilapia are going to reproduce some too. So you get the benefit of them reproducing as well as, that immediate need to feed forage fish to your game fish. Now keep in mind that tilapia are going to die when it gets cool, and trout are going to die when it gets warm. So the key component here that Jay's talking about is the word seasons, as the seasons change. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to go about it. All right, let me see if I've written down any more topics. Oh, I know, here's one thing I was going to hit until you guys hit me with a few more questions, then we're going to wrap up. Somebody sent me an email, what are the signs of overcrowding bass? Well, the signs that bass are getting overcrowded is there going to be certain size classes within your population that are losing weight. So I would encourage all of you to weigh and measure some fish and log them down, put them in that spreadsheet. If you don't have it, email me, info@pondboss.com. Say, hey, Bob, you mentioned something about a spreadsheet for bass. I'll send you that spreadsheet. You plug your links and weights in, it's going to compare your fish to standard, and it's going to give you a view, a number, and when your bass are beginning to lose weight, that's how you know they're getting to be overcrowded. And if you can be proactive and get them when they just get to that cusp of losing weight, then you can keep them on an upward growth trend. Every pond's like a garden. At some point, you're going to be harvesting fish. And if you can predict when you need to harvest fish before it's necessary to harvest certain size classes of fish, then you're going to be a lot more successful. How many times a year do bluegills spawn? When the temperature hits about, I'm going to tell you 68 to 70, they start spawning. And the Mozambiques and the Nilotica, which I think has a new name now, I'm old school on this, they're mouth brooders. So the males take the eggs in their mouths after they're fertilized, they hatch in their mouths, then they'll spit them out. And then as they're absorbing their yolk, they let them swim, then they suck them back in to protect them. Then as soon as they spit them out, let them go about their way into the algae mats and plant mass or gets eaten by bluegill or whatever, then they spawn again. So they're going to be spawning, I can't tell you how many times an individual tilapia is going to spawn because they tend to spawn in cycles, but they spawn a lot. It's really common. Well, for example, a 10th acre hatchery pond at our house at LL, 2, for about 7 or 8 years in a row, I grew tilapia. Going into the fall, we would have at least 5 size classes of tilapia, which included the ones we stocked, plus 4 different hatches of tilapia babies. And we would put those tilapia in at typically about the end of April, and we would harvest them in October. So you can do the math on that. 4 spawns between the middle of April until the middle or latter part of October. Mark Williams, topic suggestion: what phases should one add fish to a new pond to stagger the bait fish first, and how much longer to add the bass desired species? That's a good topic. I'll hit that. That's a good one. There's, let's see, Kevin Matney from Erie, Michigan. Hey, it's okay. You don't ever have to apologize for being late because you're fishing. I love it. All right, Deborah, tipping my baby root beer mug to you. Cheers. Buffalo Trace. Hey, Vito, good to see you, buddy. Big round of applause from Vito. So, hey, you know what? We've been going now for 54 minutes. That's long enough. So I'm going to wrap it up. Hey, don't forget, Pond Boss Magazine, if you haven't subscribed yet, $35 a year, cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. Please do that. And stay in touch with me. Let me know some more topics. I'll go scroll back through here and write down these topics, and I'll get with Chico and see if we can't add those topics into the QU for some more podcasts. So in the meantime, maybe next time you see me, I'll have a ponytail. I don't know. But I'm going to sign out. I do appreciate everybody checking in and watching this video. And thanks for your support. And thanks for the participation. Adios.